about the exercise is it's a warning about the challenge and the struggle that we have as modern people gathering that energy from the ancient world. We are people who have been brought up with the scientific method. We have often been taught to discredit myths and fairy tales and intuitive spiritual experiences that can't be quantified. They can't be proven. And so, Jung already in 1912 was not only a modern, but he was a postmodern person. And this is one of the things he wanted to address in the Red Book, and I want to show you one of the ways he did it. This is a blow-up of that little, one of those little tiny paintings. I don't know if you can see it from all the angles here. Let me make sure I can see it. So here is the second primary method that Carl Jung used to write the Red Book. He used dialogue, creative writing, poetry, but primarily his method was inducing relaxation states, entering into visualizations, and exploring the content of his psyche through what he called active imagination. So this is a drawing or a painting of his first active imagination experiment. So he worked all day in his office, had dinner with his wife and children, then went back to his office, practiced yoga, and so he got in a relaxed state, and then he just simply had this as his guide. If what I were experiencing was a landscape, what kind of landscape would it be? And he closed his eyes and just entered into what he depicts there, an absolute barren desert. And he was horrified when he experienced this, because this is a guy who was at the top of his profession. He had published books, he traveled the world speaking, all these accolades. He married a woman who was independently wealthy, and yet inside he recognized he was a barren desert. This was the beginning of his healing process in terms of connecting to what's really going on with him. The way he described this is the state of a man who has lost his soul. So he would go back every night. He'd go to work, have dinner with the family, go back to the office, do his yoga, do his visualizations, and he kept imagining a hole that was being dug in the desert so that he could explore deeper and deeper and deeper into the depths. Now, do you guys see how it relates to that little picture that I showed of getting from the little village and going down deeper and deeper to interact with those organic fixed forms, I guess you could say, or let's say organic living forms of the imagination? Well, he meets this guy. And if you can see this, this is the hole that he was digging. Right here, this is the hole he's digging. And there are little crocodiles that are lining it, because he was entering into the desert, into what we might call the Middle East. He wanted in his imagination to head back to the cradle of civilization. He wanted to get back to the original stories, the original storytellers, some of the original products that we see in literature and world religion. He misnamed this guy Izdubar, because at that time, well, it's kind of a long story, but it's really Gilgamesh. He just misnamed the guy, so he calls him Izdubar. But here's what's interesting. He had a conversation with Izdubar. This is one of the important tropes of the Red Book, that we get into an imaginative state, but then we start to interact with the creatures that we encounter. So when he came out of the visualization, he wrote this all down in his black book. This is what Izdubar and I talked about. This was the conversation that we had. I don't know if you can see you at the bottom there, little tiny you. So, Isdubar is this huge giant from the past. Well, what happened was, as a modern person with a mind full of science and an orientation toward the empirical truth, Isdubar started to get sick as Jung was talking to him. And Jung realized, my Western empirically oriented thinking is killing this beautiful thing from the past. In the next painting, see if you can see the giant who's lying down there in the desert. Again, that's the hole that Jung was digging mentally. That's Jung with his arms up in distress, and this is Isdubar who's dying. And night has fallen, and Jung doesn't know what to do. Well, he comes out of the visualization, he writes it all down, he goes to work the next day, eats dinner with the family, comes back, does yoga, and then he returns to this. And what he discovers is, hey, well, since this is my imagination, I could make Isdubar as light as an air balloon, and then just carry him with me as I journey toward the east and come in contact with more archetypes. And so Isdubar ends up on his head like a balloon, and he arrives. Now remember, this is all in his imagination. No hallucinogens, no marijuana. It's just his active imagination every night. And then when he arrives at a city, clicking the wrong thing here. See if you can see this. He arrives at the city, and Isdubar he depicts now as one of these mandalas. And he's at the city gates, and he realizes, I can't go into the city with this dying god on my head. I would be attacked and killed. So what he does is he converts Isdubar into this abstract rendering, I guess is the only thing I could call it, maybe a mandala shape. In his imagination, he says, look, I'm going to convert Isdubar into a single egg. I'm going to put his essence in there. It's the essence of his heroicism, the essence of his relationship with the wild man. If you know Gilgamesh's best friend, the wild man, I'm going to put all of those essences into this egg and then slip it into my pocket. And that way I can get into the city, get into a room, and we'll be safe. And then this is probably, in my opinion, the most important image in the Red Book. You've already seen it. He brings the egg into a room, and he recites poetry. He reads psalms that he has written. They sound very much like the Psalms of David, or the Psalms that are attributed to David in what Christians call the Old Testament. He gives praise. He does dancing. He does pretty much all of the expressive arts. But this is in his imagination. And then finally, one night, he has success, and that egg busts open, and it blasts up through the room. And this is his depiction of getting that libidinal energy into his life so that he can live in a different way. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So he's not imitating Gilgamesh. He's not trying to act like an ancient Sumerian. What he's doing is getting those essences through his imagination and bringing them into his being so that he could have some of that heroicism. He could take some of those risks that he wanted to take, including opening his marriage and having a lover. That's a different story and a different lecture. But that's what I mean by taking action with that libidinal energy that's in stories. This is not just to be talked about, it's not to be written about, it's not to be taken apart academically. It is to be brought into our being in some way. Okay. Well, that was a lot of words. I wanted to say that pretty quick so we could have some more time to talk about your experiences. Are there any questions about this before we proceed? What I just said pretty quickly.
I have a question. When you talk about the difference between Freud and Jung, Freud is saying that the energy of beingness is sexual. So is Jung saying that there is a creative energy down there in all of this, and that's really what's happening?
There is a creative energy, and that there is a particular, the only way I can describe it is moral energy that these images have, including the one that your wife painted up there. There's moral energy, and that it is trying to teach us how to act in the right way to solve the problems in our life. That's what he meant by the libidinal energy of our text.
Yeah, just a point of clarification that most of us don't need. But when Freud said libido, just as you said, he was saying that the energy of life is sex and there's also death. But when Jung said libido, he meant it's all of the energies of life, not just sex, and that there is a deep primary energy toward wholeness and completeness and responsible action in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Well said.
And that's what this individual, I mean, one thing that's worth looking at, can you all see all the opposites that are in that painting? This is a figure who's kneeling with a green shirt on a red floor. Okay, that's opposites in the color wheel. There's this white light that's bolting out of the shell. And then there's these thick black lines that are depicting the smoke. We have black, we have white, we have green, we have red. And then there's the blue up here, and then the orange. Those are opposites on the color wheel. This is a very combustible situation that he's in. I don't know if you can see the boat here with the sun. This is an image from Egyptian mythology of the sun being carried across the sky on a boat. So here we have water, and then we have flame. And do you see how the room is, it's three-dimensional, it's contained with walls, but it's being burst open on top of it. This is opposite upon opposite upon opposite upon opposite. You argue that if we can hold these opposites, we're going to get the combustion that we need so that we can get into that energy Dan is talking about, that libido, life force energy. Okay. Comments?
Just one quick question. This is an easy one.
Good.
What did he paint with? Did he use oils or what did he paint with?
That's a good question. I do not know. I am assuming oil, but I'm not sure.
Things like temperatures.
Is that the actual size of the book?
I do believe that was the actual size. I think that's what they tried to do when they recreated it. I believe, but I don't know.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. All right, we have a mere 20 minutes left to share. I just want to end my part before I turn this microphone over to you all to talk about your experiences. Just in conclusion, when I originally called this lecture something to do with Vision Quest, healing with Jungian depth psychology and the sacred image. What I meant was, Jung literally meant that those images that come to us from dreams and stories and our active imagination, they should be tended to in the same way that we tend to the little baby Jesus in the Christian tradition. He thought it should be dealt with just that much reverence when we have dreams, when we make images. We need to have a place for the little image to grow, it can be tended to, and so that we can experience its libidinal energy in the world. That's what I meant by the healing through art and the work with archetypes. The only other thing I want to say in conclusion is that art can heal at two different levels. And in the tradition in America with art therapy, it started out first as product, where artists would come to a psychiatric facility and they would just bring their easel and their paints, and there'd be paints for other people who were probably severely mentally ill. And the idea was just keep these people oriented toward a painting and teach them how to make something beautiful, and that is good for people. Well, I happen to believe that. I mean, I don't like the word product-oriented art therapy, but this is a product that Jung created, and he spent 27 years doing it, and I think it was good for him. The other part of the art therapy is let's have process-oriented. Let's enter into symbols, and let's expand on meaning, and let's do that. Well, sometimes you can't do that with people who are severely mentally ill. That they're not going to benefit. They're not going to increase in their insight. But for people who don't have a problem shuttling back and forth from the empirically oriented truth to the symbolically oriented truth, we could benefit greatly from expanding our insight when we work with images like this. Who would like to report on your experience? I'd love to hear from somebody I've not heard from before, so that the group can give a plethora of voices.
Yes, I chose a pen and ink piece here by Maria Renee. I don't know if she's here. And I chose it for several reasons, one of which is I already own one of her pieces of art. I found it in a shop in Tucson, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, and I was really intrigued by it. And this particular image that I tried to make a drawing of, it was not very successful, reminds me very much of the piece that I bought. And it's called Memory of the Dead and Becoming. And I thought that was a great title for the subject of today's discussion. And it's all about the balance, cycle of balance. And it's in the painting is a hawk moth and a datura flower, several flowers. And to me, it's a cycle of pollination, creation, and if we take it into the Jungian concept, I believe that suggests through the natural world individuation, which was a term that Jung coined. Georgia O'Keeffe, by the way, often painted datura flowers, and she would match them next to a skull. And from the desert, so I found that connection very interesting.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. There's something inexplicably calm about her work. Now, I'm going to ask you a trick question if you're ready. What kind of action would you take that would honor your attraction to that piece of art? If you could imagine an action of some sort that you could take that would honor it.
I'm in the hot seat now. Well, I could buy it first. Then I could share it with, people that, like I do with painting in my home. Beyond that, I'm not sure. It really speaks to me. I'm a street photographer, a documentary photographer. I'm a realist, and so there's a lot of abstract work here that appeals to me, but that's not what I do. So I tend to gravitate towards realism. And in this case, I think the artist has really created a wonderful piece that captures duality, the balance, and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. One thing that we could say, if you wanted to live Jung's methodology, hey, if you guys could just keep your voices down, I get distracted when I'm talking, sorry. Now, I was wondering what else. Oh, check it out. So the egg in the room. If you purchased that painting, I'm not suggesting you do that, but if you purchased it and you brought it into your space, it would be very much like that painting that we saw. But then what you would have to do is write poems for it. You would have to sing songs to it. You would have to do a little jig in front of it. And then the idea would be, could you release something that would be beneficial that you don't already know? Anybody else?
So I chose Linda Valdez's Resurger, is that, am I saying that right? So here, thank you. The tree with all of the faces in it. And I thought it was really interesting because when I was here on opening night, I passed right by it and was like, oh, this is a tree, it's beautiful, but, you know, but when I came and looked at it closer, I saw that there were all these trees that are all these faces. And I started to look deeper into the faces, and the lower that the faces were in the roots, the more archaic they were. So they were more like statues, they didn't have eyes, they had this kind of element of being pretty ancient. And then I kind of followed the tree up and saw that in one of the branches that's kind of above the roots is this, she looked like a fairy to me. This living creature that had very defined living features. And so I thought that was really interesting of bringing kind of, I guess, these archetypal mythological characters and starting to bring them up closer to the surface of the tree. But what I thought, what really struck me about it is the tree was dead. And so I kept going, well, if we're talking about individuation, the tree should be alive now, you know? But I thought this, if you're talking about like these tension of the opposites, there's still this living being that's in this seemingly dead tree. And it's starting to bring life into this tree that if you just are looking at it from a distance, you're like, oh, well, that's just a dead tree. But I think that's so much of the beauty of this work is starting to bring that from the inside, like, and emerging. So who knows if the tree will ever come back to life again, but
I think
there's
it will.
still life in it.
I think it will.
Yeah, so that was, I think that was my take on it.
I'd like to ask you the same question, that if there were a morality to that, if there were a way to act or actions to take in the world, what would that look like for you?
I mean, if I'm thinking of it from how can I live out of my experience of it, it's to kind of look deeper into things that would seemingly seem, you know, desolate, and to look for life in these things that, you know, may not necessarily have, on the outside, we look like just a dead tree, but to really be able to lean in and look into, okay, where is the magic in there? Because there's still this very magical creature, and so that's, I guess.
Do you guys hear that? This is wonderful. So the morality that I'm going to take is that now I look closer into the world. I want to make sure I'm not missing things. That there are things that are alive that I don't often pay attention to, but now I'm going to stop and do just that. Just like what happened with the ark. I mean, this is a kind of transformation, and it is the transfer of libidinal energy.
I think this looks more like a tempera, gouache, or casein, water base paint rather than oil.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to find out more about the quality of that paint. I've never even reflected on that. Okay, oh yeah, we got plenty of time. I want to hear from some other people. Somebody that I've not heard their voice. There we go.
All right, I'm going to riff a little because during the assignment I was hugging people I've only seen on Zoom.
That's a good way, good way to start.
Right, but when we first came in today, I looked along the walls, but I sat down and I looked over and I saw the one you posted, the one that's titled Heartache. And I thought it was gorgeous, but it hurt my heart, oddly enough. I was kind of like, ugh, you know, but I was drawn to the one next to it. And I didn't even know what it was titled, but I was like, okay, that looks kind of like the unconscious. You know, the one on the right was more conscious, like, maybe unconscious. And then it was kind of scary, and I saw a sea monster.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, and then it looked really angry and mean, right? And I was like, ooh, that's scary. And then I gave it love, and now I see its eyes are open and it's kind of smiling now. So if anybody has ever done any mushrooms and had a bad experience, and you give it love, it dissolves and it transforms. And that painting transformed for me.
Wow.
Man, that's wonderful. The name of this, by the way, is called Out of the Shadows. And you know, it's almost as if that very story that you told us was coming out of the shadows. That is that transfer of libidinal energy. Now, I'm going to ask you, how does one act differently according to that? And then I'll get to you. I saw your hand up.
I don't know about differently, because it's something I've been working on. When something scary or uncomfortable happens, or having trouble with something, I give it love, or myself, and then it transforms. So it just, for me, it just underscored that experience and that work I've been doing. So I would need to think a little deeper to answer your question deeper.
Well, I'm going to accept the answer just the way you gave it, because what we could say is, hey, I've got a project. I'm working on loving things. And then all of a sudden I was at this gallery. Oh my God, where did this monster come from? Oh, I know what to do. It's what I'm doing now, and that is to give this thing love, to see what happens. Okay, I saw your hand up.
Well, this is so practical. I see it as the Nile. The aqua coming down into Africa, and all of the validation that's going on in the Middle East right now.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, and it's very serious, and it's very much important for this moment. What does one do with that?
Well, I think that's why I'm glad I came here today, because we need to dive deep to get beneath the surface of what's going on, and really collect our healing energy in a way that can make a difference. And what can I do personally? Yeah, and it's just this question we're all asking, I think. What more can I do?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's the work. That's the work that we're doing. I think we have time for a couple of more people. I could start calling on people. Okay, here we go.
I'm not sure exactly, but I thought it was interesting because I sat down with my little sketch and she said, oh, that's I'm going to sit next to her and I don't know her. But she said, oh, that's my piece. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh, I think it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And the name of the title is a photograph, Sinking Woman, by Madeline Sharon. And yes, so the sinking woman, I was looking at it, it looks like on the surface it looks very threatening, you know, like this woman is sinking underwater. However, when I saw it and I stayed with it for a while, I realized that she was absolutely calm, and it wasn't frightening at all. And it's kind of like life, but if you stay with something long enough and you understand it and you perceive it at a deeper level, I changed it to something sort of like breathing underwater, because she was okay. She was being there, and she had switched it from threatening to peace.
Beautiful. Thank you. Doesn't this sound just like a dream? That I went to a gallery, I heard a talk, I saw a piece of art, I started writing about it. Oh, the artist was right beside me suddenly. That's very cool.
We talked about it a little bit.
And similar to Tim, that this is an ethos. It's easy to convert this one that, oh, am I sinking, or can I just start breathing? Can I do what is happening in the painting? Can I just make that switch and start breathing and realize, no, I'm not sinking? Okay, well, yeah, lots of time. We got 6 minutes at least. Okay,
I don't need that.
okay, lay it on us.
So I like this piece with the branches that seem to be dancing together. Of course, the thing that's keeping this together is this ring, this metal ring. So two different materials, of course. The material of flora and fauna has a life cycle and will eventually decay and go back into the earth, whereas metal, the ring of this metal ring has a much longer life cycle. But the symbolism for me in this piece is that, you know, we go through our lives and we have this dance. Every day we have a dance with the people in our lives, the people that we love, people we like, and the people we can't stand. For some reason, they've been brought into our circle. And so, you know, I'm reminded of Emerson, who said, you know, we're all the same organism. And the lifeblood that flows through me is the same lifeblood that flows through you. And so when I come up against people I really don't like, or people that I've never met, and I go, I don't like you, and I don't even know you. You have to remember, we're all connected, and it's harder to remember that as we age. We become much more selective and much more discretionary of who we want in our circle and who we like. And so I think this piece of art, for me, embodies that idea. So, there you go.
Thank you.
That almost seems like the note we should end on. I feel like the wild man came in from the woods, and he got cleaned up and had a meal and a cup of coffee, and now he's speaking his truth. And I really would like to end on that. Thank you, David. Folks, what we did today is a part of what the Jung Society is really committed to, and that is working with the philosophy in a way that is practical, a way that can be applied, a way that brings people together. We don't get tripped up on all of the intellectualism. You know, Jung and depth psychology is very intellectual, but it doesn't mean that it needs to be disconnecting or even selective. There's lots of room in the circle.